I will just share this little piece of personal advice. I tend to wake up at least 2-3 times during the night, and I know this is contrary to what we just said earlier, but what I tend to do is I roll over and I take my BlackBerry in this case, and I pull up the news and I read the newspaper. And my whole life I couldn't make through a whole article, so no different at night.
Oh, well, Seth, that's great, because I was thinking, that's horrible. Because when I start to read the news, then I read more, and then I get more anxious. But for you, see, that, and everybody's individual. For you, that really puts you right out. Some people keep boring books by their bed for just that reason, too.
Wow.
And other people who can't sleep give themselves rules. If I'm not back to sleep in 10 minutes, I have to get up and scrub the bathtub. And then just so they don't have to do it, they fall back asleep. So people, you need to tinker with your own script and what that's about.
We have a great question here from John that I want to get to. Oftentimes, I dread falling asleep because I'm afraid of how horrible my arthritis will be the next morning. I feel so nervous to the point of being nauseous. Is this fear irrational?
Oh, I don't think it's irrational. I think that that's really
real.
Yeah, exactly. That's very real. But I'm concerned, John, that that you're so nervous to the point of being nauseous, because that's suggesting to me that your arthritis is really causing you a lot of pain, that you're in a lot of pain. And so I think that sounds like you need to talk about pain control with your doctor, because if your arthritis, if you're in that much pain, you really need some help from your physician to begin to dial that down so that you can sleep. And I think when you feel like you have more control over some of that pain and some ways to deal with it, then you obviously it won't be so frightening to you. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I certainly can echo a lot of the way John feels, because one of the crazy things about this world of arthritis is you really wake up and it's every day the roulette wheel spins and winds up at a different number.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be the number of the severity of pain, or the opposite, how great you feel and how lucky you feel to feel that great. So going to sleep does mean waking up eventually in the next morning, either one or the other.
Well, and the other thing is, I think it's useful to have somebody to talk to about that, because the unpredictability of how you're going to feel is very unsettling, and there often is no way to predict. So having somebody that you can talk to a little bit about that before you even get ready for bed, so you begin to kind of get those fears out. Otherwise, often things we fear are much bigger in the night and much more difficult once all the other distractions go away. So having a conversation with somebody to balance that sense also really helps.
Yeah. Speaking of having someone, Roberto in New Mexico writes, my wife and I have very different methods for falling asleep. I have RA, but she doesn't. How do I ask her to change and not feel badly about it?
So now we're into a whole nother level of, couple relationships or sleeping with somebody else. Yeah, and that, you don't have to have RA to have those issues, but that adds a whole nother layer of complexity to it. I think when people have different falling asleep styles, they really have to talk about it, because one of the things that can happen is one member of the couple feels abandoned, perhaps, if the other one goes to sleep earlier or wakes up earlier. So some of it is addressing what's going on in the relationship. Some people, if they don't fall asleep at the same time, it doesn't feel like their relationship is solid. If you stay up later than I do, I feel like you're not paying attention to me. All those kinds of issues that come up. So I think that it may be not asking the person to change, but it may be more being willing to allow each of you to have your own style, and to know that that's really not a judgment on the strength or the closeness of your relationship. That you can still be close in other ways and other times, and that the person with RA needs to get to sleep, and to talk about how you can share closeness and cuddle maybe, or talk, and then the person who needs to go to sleep does, and maybe the other person gets up, maybe they're a TV watcher and they but they put it on mute or they have those headphones. You work that out. But a lot of it is talking and being willing to be flexible about that.
Good answer. Let's see. Francine in the UK, and as I'm saying this out loud, I'm trying to do the time change, so it is very timely that it's like 1:45 in the morning there, and you're asking this ironic question of sorts. I have the opposite problem from the one we're talking about tonight. I sleep most of the time, and I don't want to get out of bed. Is too much sleep unhealthy?
It's a great question because it's sort of the opposite of what we're talking about. So this is a person who's spending a lot of time sleeping. That's really one of the first signs of depression. And so if you find that your problem is not falling asleep and staying asleep, but your problem is not wanting to get up or get out of bed, and maybe it's about that fear of how you're going to feel or what's going to be facing you, I think that's time to talk to somebody and get some listening in. Maybe you don't want to go to a psychologist, and maybe your doctor's not available. Maybe you talk to your rabbi or clergy person, talk to somebody, the nurse practitioner, but just say, I've been sleeping, 12 hours a day, and I don't think that's really not healthy to sleep that much.
Call your rabbi in the middle of the night, too.
Yeah,
they appreciate that. Also, just one of those things about real-time webinars like the one we're doing today. Not only do you get all these questions that come in while we're talking, but you also get the compliments and the complaints, especially about my Roberto accent from New Mexico. So sorry about that, Marco. And we should move on to the next question. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Mark is got a fun one. Take it he's a little older, but he says he records 50s and 60s TV shows when he can't sleep, and he puts a timer on the TV to play one of them, and then he's usually asleep within 10 minutes, and the TV turns off automatically. Do you think he could fall asleep to these shows because they remind him of when he was younger and could sleep easily?
Oh. Well, you know what? It doesn't really matter. I mean, that may be it, or it just may be it was a younger, more innocent time for everybody in those shows, and the worries of the day don't seem so overwhelming.
We'll
sure.
See.
Whatever it is, the deal is, he's found something that works. You turn on your BlackBerry and read a little of the news. I think having something like that in your back pocket, though, that works for you is great. Again, as many resources and routines as you can create for yourself. Here's somebody that records something that they know relaxes them ahead of time and turns it on with the timer. The TV timer is a great thing. I know I said no TV, but for some people, they fall asleep. That relaxes them. Terrific. And then they're off. So again, creating what works for you is the most important thing, and being willing to try some things and experiment, and then keep what's good and let go of what doesn't. But again, that goes with the beginning of how you create your own sleep script.
Here's a fun one. I know the answer to it, but I'd like to hear from the expert. Ellen from Southern Florida writes, sometimes I drink myself to sleep. Is that healthy?
And you know the answer to that, right, Seth?
I'm going to go with no, but tell us why.
Yeah, no, that's really not a good idea. And the same with people who take, I know I've had some patients who take Benadryl to go to sleep or have a couple drinks. First of all, you're not going to stay asleep if you drink yourself to sleep. And second of all, that much alcohol is really not good for you. That's not a good habit that you want to get into. It creates a depressive mindset. It's not great with arthritis. I don't need to go on.
Plus, you don't want to leave the cigarette burning.
But if you are having that much trouble getting to sleep that you're creating those kinds of routines, this is a time to kind of shake them up and do it differently. And look on some websites, get some other information, talk to some people, and create some different routines.
Yeah, turn it around. And I could see where she's coming from.
Oh, I can totally see.
2 glasses of wine, and I can't even function.
Absolutely. And first of all, it's also not going to go well with most of your medication. So there's that issue. But it seems easy. You're having trouble sleeping. You're in a lot of pain. Let's have a couple glasses of wine or a couple beers and see. But it's not a great way to deal with it.